like to lead off on the tribute to JP. JP was a friend, a mentor, and just a wonderful person, and I know we all miss him and will miss him in the coming years. One of my favorite memories of JP was he was, as I think most of you know, I'm the leader of a coffee party group, discussion group, every Saturday, and JP, if you were in town, never failed to miss a meeting. He loved it. And he always got there early and made the coffee. And yesterday, I had to get there early, but somebody else had already made the coffee. So, he was a totally valuable member of that coffee party group. And he got this little thing, the museum where we meet used to have Wi-Fi, but they quit for some reason. And so JP bought this little thing, and I'd sure like to have one like it, that's a kind of a remote Wi-Fi. So he could sit there and he could fact check anybody that was saying anything. And if they said something that wasn't quite true, he'd say, well, now according to... So anyway, he was a dear man. He used to come by and have coffee with us every once in a while in the morning at our house, and it's going to be hard to fill that hole.
Three things that stand out to me when I think about JP. The number one thing is just his attitude about life in general. He just had this amazing positive attitude. He was fearless. He wasn't afraid to try anything. In a lot of ways, that reminds me of my mom's attitude. We're a lot alike in that way. And one of the things that I would always do, it wasn't that I forgot. I mean, I always asked him. I don't know how many times I asked him. I said, JP, how old were you when you hiked the Appalachian Trail? And I just wanted to hear him say he was 65 years old, because it just gave me this encouragement that that I might be able to do those kind of things. And that really kind of set an example for me. The other thing I think about when I think about JP is he was just fun. I mean, the parties that we had at his house, I really miss that. I miss that now, because the last one, you kind of take things for granted, like it's going to go on forever. But I remember the last time we were out there, I was thinking, this is the last time we're going to have a party out here. But just with everything, he would jump out on the dance floor, and he wasn't exactly Fred Astaire or whatever, but he'd just get out there and he'd go with it, and he was always ready to have fun, and he was always making everybody else have fun just by being around. But I guess maybe the biggest thing about JP was his generosity and compassion. And I thought that was funny. Molly said, well, he'd take his garbage, to save money, but he'd give tons of money away. Anybody that was in need, JP would step up and he would be there. And my story about JP would have to be the time that he and I helped move this friend across the country. He was really kind of down on his luck. He had been divorced. He'd lost his job. He had a drinking problem anyway, so he was kind of in bad shape at that point. And it was in the middle of the ice storm. So he'd been sitting up in the house for a week with no water or electricity. So we had to kind of start with that. Got a U-Haul, loaded all this stuff in the truck, went all the way out to Arkansas, and we had a really good time there. But on the way back, of course, you know, JP and I were driving back, so I got a lot of stories of adventures of his life, and I appreciated that as well. So that was quite an adventure. And again, it was, you know, an example of how he was always ready and willing and jumping in to help other people.
JP much less well than most of you, only for the last 3 years, mostly through the discussion group and the coffee party. I remember he would come in sandals and tattered shorts and a t-shirt because he'd been volunteering all night at one of the shelters for the homeless. But he would sit at the head of the table and be our fact checker. And then once, a couple of Decembers ago, he came in so elegantly dressed in a fitting black top coat, a red tie and top hat. I didn't know he was going to Downton Abbey party but he was going to go to Kroger's and stand in front of the Salvation Army bucket and ring the bell. I think he gave more and got more out of life than most people I could even imagine.
This group has given me so many gifts. Each and every one of you all is a gift. And JP was a fine example of a wonderful gift that I got from being part of this group. And I've been thinking about him a lot. I wrote down a bunch of stuff that I was going to read off, and I thought, no, I could go on and on about JP. But my fondest memories of him is, number one, when Terry was doing the program about music, he immediately, y'all talk about him dancing, he grabbed Nikki and they got up and danced. You know, one of these, listen to the music or something. And I'll always remember that. And then the other thing I want to share is the last service he was here. We happened to sing that song, Dear Friend. One hand I had with Olivia, and the other hand I was holding JP's hand. And as all of y'all know, it said, dear friend, let me tell you how I feel. You have given me such pleasure. I love you so.
Unitarian group, and I knew him and his wife Nora. He died of cancer, and a year later he and I started to date, and I don't know, I had the feeling that he wasn't having a good time in Connecticut anymore, and we visited Kentucky because he wanted me to be introduced to Millie, his sister, who was going to decide whether I was good enough. And she said to me, gosh, I wish you would move back to Kentucky because this is so far away and I'd love to see him more. Okay. So I moved him to Kentucky. And I'm glad I did because he had so much to offer. But it seemed there was no one to offer it to in Simsbury. And in here, in this town, he was able to really put it all out because there's so much of a need. And he didn't step back. Whatever was presented, he would do it. And by the way, with the trash, yes, there was no point in asking JP for $5. Now, if you needed 500, that was different. And if the bananas were not on sale, I was not supposed to buy them. Yeah, I'm going to miss this.
I think I've known JP longer than anybody in here because I was a classmate. And he put on our last class reunion, which was such a joy. I didn't see it. Where are you? Anyway, he had help. And I just will miss him. He was one of Owensboro's leading liberals. Oh, yes. Don't forget that. He was a wonderful liberal. Getting back.
That's pretty cool.
Say a few words about JP. I met JP too at the coffee party, and if I'm not mistaken, the first time I saw him was when he had that Christmas outfit on. And I went, who is this guy that's dressing like this? And I wish I could dress like that. I used to be in the cavalry and like to dress up. But we were immediately friends because we both like to discuss topics, historical or anything else. And we were also both a little bit anti-Tea Party. And so in the coffee party, we were a wonderful tag team to pretty much, you know, at least make the Tea Partiers be quiet. That was the main thing. I was actually, remember Roger? I was Roger's enforcer, like this little guy, but when those Tea Partiers would come in and start hollering, I just tell them I had to leave, you know, get out, you know. But I remember Nikki and JP came out to my little horse farm one weekend, and I think we tried to get Nikki on Bell, didn't we?
I rode that thing around the yard for her.
Yeah, that's right. She has a big old walking horse, 16 hands. She got right on there and did good. And that was fun. We had lunch, and that was great. And then I think I went with JP to, was it a 4th of July party? You know, he wanted an ally or something. So I went. But, you know, finally, and every so often, this is really what I want to talk about. One Sunday, we had to argue about the humanists and what Thomas Jefferson believed and all this kind of stuff. And we didn't agree on that. So we got in kind of an argument out by the garbage bins out there. And JP went off in a huff, saying, oh, you know, everything had to continue, you know. And he went away, and I felt terrible about it, as I always do after these things. And I'm like, oh, you know, and I'm walking 15 minutes later or something like this, I'm walking down the hall to go out, and here comes JP, comes in, hugs me, apologizes, I apologize to him, and, you know, we're buddies, and I'll never forget that he did that. He came all the way back. It's just, I was feeling bad, and he was feeling bad. He was a wonderful guy, and I'm going to miss him a lot. I wish I had been around longer to know him better the way most of the rest of you do. But he was a great guy.
So, you know how everybody has those stories that everybody, you know, I want to hear those stories that everybody has, and JP's is so amazing. And the main reason I wanted to come to this church is I really wanted to hear his story especially. And then I heard he passed away, and I was, really? And I didn't get to know him much other than coffee party meetings. And he was just really cool, and I really wanted to meet him. I did know a little about him. I always said, hey, he knew about me. So now I have you guys to tell me his story. And And now I can know your stories and just know what to do whenever I get to be older. Thank you. So I was really ashamed I didn't get to hear his story himself. Thank you.
Thank you, dear.
Everything's taller than I am. But JP was a lot like you, Dave. If anybody needed help, JP showed up, and you did the same. Pam and I helped Charlie and Elizabeth put up a fence. JP came and helped us. Charlie's no longer with us. JP even came to my house and helped put up a fence.
Mm-hmm.
Now, we're not talking about a 16-year-old here.
No.
He was able to do more than I could. But whenever you needed help, he was there. And I do appreciate you sharing the story, because I remember when he came back. I mean, we all say that he's kind, but he was also more than kind. He would reach out. He was just a true gentleman, a true gentleman. And I don't know how many of you remember at my house that we met and had the parties, and we were talking about philosophy of religion, where we want to meet, and finally we ended up at his house and started our own little church here.
Oh.
Yeah, you remember, don't you?
Yes.
And we owe a lot to JP, and thank you for being in my life.
I think the two things that JP left me with was passion and integrity. He was so passionate about his causes that, I mean, it made him ebullient. He just spilled it over, you know. And he was also just such a man of integrity. And there was not a wishy-washy thing about that man. And I think that that's something I would like to have. I'd like to take that from him.
JP and I only a few days apart, our birthdays in August, 1 year apart. And he had a very rich social life, very different from mine. But when he was worried about something or got serious about something, it seems like he would seek me out. And I never felt like I had words of wisdom for him as such, but I do like to think that I had an ear for him at least. And sometimes we would talk rather at length over something that was on his mind. And it's hard for me to adjust that last Sunday in this very building, I was loaning him a book, and his concern was that my name was in it so he could get it back to me. And when he opened the book, saw my name, oh, everything is all right. It's hard for me to adjust that last Tuesday night, about 7 o'clock, he, with his 10-gallon hat, standing in the back with 14 others, were singing in front of my house. And then some 43 hours later, here comes Nikki's message. And you know what it said. My first thought, is this Halloween? Is this a joke? Or what's going on? But it didn't take me long to realize that these things happen. So JP and I have had many years together, and I will remember them and love them.
I have so many memories of JP. Goes back, I don't know how many years, 10 or 12, I don't know, but anyway.
10.
10?
Yeah.
Back,
Yeah.
I'll never forget going camping with him, going hiking with him. He took Brad's mother's dog, Rosie, who was sick, and after she was too
you know, she couldn't have them in her apartment, so they took Rosie to raise. And she had a good life with them.
You had hot warm.
Yeah, she was, and then I'll never forget JP's attitude. He always was, whenever you suggested you were gonna go somewhere, you were gonna do something, he was ready to go, always had a good attitude, always ready to have fun. He got to know he would even go to Lexington with us to see our friend Lisa and Bob play in their band. Always the first one to get up and dance, wanted to go back again, wanted to talk to Bob about his guitar. He was always interested in my kids, doing things for them, got to know the kids, was always interested in young people, and always wanted to support young people. He was one of the most generous and kind people I know. I'll always remember him.
Well, I didn't know JP as long as most of you have, but one thing I do know, he looked good in anything he wore. It didn't matter if he wore a pair of shorts and a t-shirt or a wetsuit and out on a boogie board, or if he had that big Scrooge hat, top hat on. He just looked good, no matter what he had on. And one of the things I know that I will remember forever is Mother's Day, not this year, but a year ago. He did a presentation on Mother's Day here. And I remember he sat up here, altar was right about here. He sat up there on the stage and he had a pair of white pants on. And I think he had a pink shirt or a blue shirt on, I'm not clear on that. But he sat up there and he crossed his legs and he explained to us why he thinks Mother's Day is really the best holiday there is. And you could tell he had a lot of love for his mother. And that just came out, and I'll never forget that. So.
JP, as far as you guys said, but I don't really think it matters how long you know a person. When there are some people that you meet, you'll always remember. Like JP and Tom. I didn't get to know them for very long. And I feel so blessed to have known them for just a little while, that's going to last my whole life. I'll be able to remember them my whole life because they were the type of people that I want to be, the type of people I want to strive to be. I think of them, and I do try to do good the way that they did. They were just good people, just loving people. JP was a regular at McDonald's where I work. There's from 5 to like 8, there's a special silver air club that I love. I love them. They're my regulars every day. He would come in, and the first thing you'd hear when you walk in is, "Hey, JP!" And I knew that he was there when I heard his name, and I'm back in the back where you can't see me, I'm not on counter. And I'd hear a lady who's on counter and she'd say, "Your man's here, your man's here." He was my man. I feel very honored that he was my man for just as long as he was there every day. First thing I did was give him a kiss, and all the other ones were so jealous. They said, "Hey, where's our kiss?" And I'd say, "Sorry, that's reserved for his cheeks." And I'd give him a kiss on both cheeks. And he'd always say, "That's really good. That's a good way to start my morning." So I'm so honored that he was my man for a little bit. And I knew when his dog was in the parking lot at McDonald's, he was there. And I'm just going to miss seeing him. He was so handsome. And I'll remember him for the rest of my days, just like Tom. And I can't wait to see him again so we can talk more. There's always more. I felt like I could say more. And when I didn't go Carolyn another night, because I was depressed and I didn't want to get out of bed and I was tired of all those stupid excuses that we use. There's always regret. And just tell people what you think. Tell people what you love. Say what you're going to say. Because I didn't say it, didn't go. So just do it now while you can. Just do it now.
I'm sorry, I forgot about something I wanted to talk about. JP, just take a second. As we all know, JP knew for quite a while that he probably didn't have forever to live after the cancer took over. And I've spent a whole lifetime reading about and studying war. And the closest thing I've ever come to war was the National Guard in Grant Park during the Democratic National Convention. When we were running away. It's supposed to be Gandhi, but it didn't quite work out that way. My troops ran away. But anyway, so I did have that one experience, kind of. But there's all kinds of different courage in war. There's the brave heart, you're charging, you're courageous, you know, you're fighting the enemy, blah, blah, all kinds of different kinds. But there's one kind that's known as valor, valorous. And in my opinion, JP handled his last year and a half, or however long it was, with this valor, which means that you just pretty much act like nothing's wrong. Although the bullets are flying, the enemy is closing in, you've just got this great savoir-faire. That's valor. And that's what JP was, valorous.
JP was one of my heroes. He and Tom and Kathy, they are the epitome of what Unitarianism is, and they're the bedrock of this church.
I ended up with JP's lady. So me and JP had a special relationship. You don't get very many chances to impress the people. And we were out visiting JP one time, and he was a fan of Yukon. Well, he had a Yukon flag, and he had a flagpole. But no Yukon flag on the flagpole. So I volunteered to put it up there. Nobody videotaped it. It was a shame, it really was. I don't know, 18, 19 feet up a little skinny pole now, not a big flag pole, but a little skinny pole. So I hiked the rope over my shoulder and stuck it in my mouth, shimmied up the thing, took it off my shoulder, holding on with one hand, threaded it through the turnbuckle at the top, and zzz, right back down the pole.
And that is why it was not recorded.
They were in awe, but that impressed him.
Oh, yes.
And I did some work for him on his maple house, and he had gone in the day before with a paint scraper and some sandpaper. I'm not sure what all he used, trying to get the paint that I got on the floor after I painted the walls. It's a hardwood floor. And I told him, don't worry about it, I'll take care of it. Well, the next day I went in, I took care of it, finished it off with Scotch liquid gold, and the floor was gleaming. He was ever so impressed. Raved about it, didn't he?
He did. He did. He never met somebody who actually finished the job like that.
All the people that we've lost, I've been good friends with. Some of them I impressed, some of them I didn't, but I was always impressed by them. I consider myself one of the luckiest people alive to have known these people. Y'all are on your own feeling that way. I'm the luckiest man alive.
There were a lot of special things about JP, right? If you read social media, all the tributes to JP, one thing you hear or see a lot, and you've heard a little bit here, it was a life well lived. Right? JP knew how to live.
Yeah?
Yeah. Most of us, myself included sometimes, think that this kind of exists. Right? We kind of get caught up in the humdrum of daily life and just kind of float through. JP, you got this sense he just lived every day, right? He lived it. And I think that just emanated from him. That was part of his energy. That energy made him ageless. My kids were touched by JP. My kids think I'm an old fuddy-duddy, right? But they were sad when they heard JP had passed because they loved JP, right? And they thought JP was the coolest guy in the world. And he was 80-something years old, and I'm an old fuddy-duddy. But JP was cool because he lived, man. He had that energy, right? That young people often have.
Yes.
Right? It didn't matter. Another thing that you hear kind of echoed over and over here today is about his generosity. And I posted something or shared something that someone from the post that said character is about how you treat people who can do nothing for you.
Yes.
And we've heard stories after story after story about JP doing things over and over and over for people who could do nothing for him. Right? It wasn't about him. But it all came back to him in some way, right? That wasn't why he did it, but all this love and stuff, right, came back to him because of how he lived that and how he helped people all the time to do nothing for him. I remember it was about a year ago, probably a little less. You guys know, I a lot of times just go to RE and then I skip out because I've got a lot of stuff going on. Sometimes can't stay for half the morning. But JP usually was there for the service. But one day he came in and he was at the RE and he must have had something really pressing that day because he bolted right after RE. In fact, he was out just a couple minutes before me. And so I got out to my car and he was pulling out. And it was cold, man. It was cold. You know, last winter there were some days that were just frigid. Wind was blowing. I think it might have been a little bit of snow, but it was just nasty. And he's pulling out in his Prius. And I'm getting my Jeep and I'm starting up and I see him stop. And this little dog comes crossing in front of his Prius that he stopped for. And it was skinny, shivering, right? Just kind of hobbling along. This dog's seen better days. JP put the car in park. He obviously had somewhere to be, right? Because he wasn't going to the service, but it didn't matter. He got out, he followed that dog, and he ushered him back to the car and helped him get in the back seat. And I don't know what he did with him. I'm sure he took care of him, made sure he was okay. Right? There was nobody around to see JP do that, except me. And he didn't know I was there, right? That's just who he was, right? It was character. Nobody was watching, and that dog could certainly do nothing for him. That just summed up JP for me. So, I'll miss him. We'll all miss him. But he wouldn't want us to be sad. He wouldn't want us to have regret. So don't, right? I think he would want us to take some of that example and some of that energy and some of that live every day and apply that. I think that's the best, probably, tribute we can give to him, is to take those things that made him great and spread them out among all of us, right? And we'll make the world a better place like he did. So, that's it.
know, I know I'm no dummy, but I wasn't the intellectual giant JP was. He was brilliant. And you could hang on every word because he had so much to offer in just the mundane conversations. But when you spoke, he listened. Unlike so many people, he wasn't listening for his next response. He truly wanted to know what you had to say, and he wanted to learn even from the least of us. You know, it didn't matter what he had accomplished. He just had so much more to learn. And you hear all these things about his joyful life and everything else. But he, to my dying day, when I hear the word gentleman, his name and his face will always be there. He was just a true gentleman. And I was honored to have known him.
We're always real big fans of not being prepared.
Hold on.
I thought that there would be a big, giant JP hole in the world. And there is. But it's our job to fill that because he gave everybody a little bit of character, a little bit of encouragement, a little bit of whatever you needed. That was his generosity of soul. I have 18 gajillion stories. I won't tell them. I loved his car. He was our favorite person too. This was his little baby right here.
I need to say something here. Nikki, I'm going to keep that in mind, but he did leave a huge hole, and it's our responsibility to step up and fill it. Thank you.
I appreciate everything that all of you have said. I want to say one last thing, very briefly. And I'm an Air Force veteran, and whenever one of our comrades died or was killed in a plane crash or whatever, we had what we called a missing man formation. And we had a missing man formation for JP yesterday. He always sat at the head of the table, and nobody better take that chair, because that was his chair. So we had that chair empty yesterday with this picture, which Mary McCulley put on Facebook. Where's Mary? Oh, there you are. Oh, you didn't put it on? I thought you did.
No.
Nikki did, I think.
His daughter. His daughter.
Oh,
It's
okay,
Kalina.
okay. But this, to me, symbolizes JP, the gentleman, with his scarf and his glass of wine. I will cherish this picture.
Roger?
Yes.
Oh, but when we had a guest speaker that brought a lot of people with him, This is a record crowd today. If my count is correct, it's hard to get a very accurate count, but I get 40.
Wow.
And that is, I think, honors JP.
Yes, yes. I anticipated that we'd have a larger crowd, but I didn't know it'd be this many. And we have guests that have never been here before. This is not our usual. They just happened to come on a particular day that we didn't do our, most of our things were the same, but usually we have a speaker. But today we had to set aside for JP. He was such a...
Wouldn't he have loved all of this attention?
I really think if there is a spirit, that he is here in spirit today.
I agree with you.
Yeah.
One of the reasons I wore pink today is because JP is one of the few men I know that would wear pink proudly. Also, when he came back from Hawaii, he bought me this flower. And I would always want to wear it, hoping JP would know that I still loved him and cared for him. So that's the reason I'm dressed like I am today, for dear JP.
Excellent, excellent.
In pink.
Okay, well, JP was quite a man, as everybody knows, and anybody that didn't know him got a good taste of that today. Thank you. Now we'll have our closing hymn. If you will turn to number 245. Susan.
We're going to sing Joy to the World. I think that's kind of appropriate at the end of a service for JP, because he was joy.
Just the $3.09
It's not the $3.
What is it?
Joy to the world, the word is come. Let earth with praises sing. Let every heart prepare a room, and heaven and nature sing, and heaven and nature sing, and heaven and nature sing. Joy to the earth, now gladness reigns. Let hearts their songs employ. Wild fields and floods, rocks, hills and plains, repeat the sounding joy, repeat the sounding joy, repeat the sounding joy. No more the sins and sorrows grow, nor thorns infest the ground. Let righteousness its glory show, as far as love is found, as far as love is found, as far as love is found.
Thank you. Very appropriate. Can you hear me, or should I get this microphone?
Get that microphone.
Oh, okay.
Now, Kenny.
And now, may the blessings of life be upon us and upon this congregation. May the memories we gather here give us hope for the future. May the love that we share bring strength and joy to our hearts, and the peace of this community be with us until we meet again. And if you will follow along with the extinguishing of the chalice.
Our time in this place may be ending, but our connection to each other and this community remains. Together may we walk the path of justice, speak words of love, live the selfless deed, trod gently upon the earth, and fill the world with compassion.